Rain hammered against the windshield as Lily Carter sat motionless in the driver's seat, hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing keeping her upright. Her world had gone silent moments before, the kind of silence that roared louder than thunder. She stared at the white envelope resting on her lap. Already opened, its brutal message burned into her eyes. Inside, plain as a knife thrust to the ribs, petition for divorce, filed by her husband and delivered by his mother. The wipers dragged across glass, slow and tired, as if the car itself felt sorry for her. In the dim light of the dashboard, tears formed a thin pool at her chin. She kept whispering one question, trembling to no one. Why? She had once believed in fairy tales. Boy meets girl, girl meets loving family. Instead, she stumbled into a house where love had conditions, affection had rules, and every mistake was reported like a crime. Now, the final verdict sat in her shaking hands. Thunder cracked overhead, and that sound, sharp, violent, felt like the world announcing the end of something she never imagined would die. Before we dive deeper, she would want you to walk beside her, just for a moment. Where are you watching from right now? It's wild how a story like hers can stretch across oceans and time zones. Drop your city below. Let's see how far hearts still connect, even on dark nights like this. Lily steadied her breath, wiped her cheeks with the sleeves of her coat, and forced herself to step out into the storm. Her boots splashed in rainwater as she hurried up the steps of her own home. The one she and Ethan bought just 2 years ago, glowing with promises they carved into fresh paint and new furniture. The porch light flickered like a warning she was too numb to heed. The door opened before she reached the handle. Her mother-in-law, Diana Grant, stood framed in the doorway, immaculate as always. Hair sprayed so perfectly the rain slipping off the roof seemed to avoid her out of respect. "So," Diana said, voice crisp like winter steel, "I assume you've read it." She didn't say hello, didn't step aside, didn't offer shelter. Lily's eyelashes clung with raindrops. "Where's Ethan?" "He's staying at a hotel tonight," Diana replied, as casually as if she were naming a restaurant. "He needs space from all this." All this. 2 words to describe 5 years of shared history. First dates, burnt dinners, whispered plans for kids. All this. Lily swallowed, the ache pressing at her throat. "He couldn't tell me himself?" Diana's lips twitched, not with sympathy, but triumph barely masked. "He signed his half. That's what matters." For a moment, the wind dragged the storm louder, whipping trees across the driveway. Lily clung to the sound because anything was better than hearing the steady rhythm of her life splintering. Diana lifted her chin. "You must have seen this coming. Ethan deserves better than." "Then what?" Lily snapped, the crack in her voice louder than thunder. "Than me? I loved him. I still do." Diana's brows rose with pity shaped like poison. Love isn't enough when a woman can't meet expectations. Expectations. Be quieter. Be stronger. Be perfect. The words she'd heard for years echoed like ghosts. Lightning flared, reflecting off Diana's cold eyes. Lily suddenly understood something essential and devastating. This wasn't a sudden blow. It had been engineered piece by piece, smooth like marble, delivered at the most convenient moment for everyone but her. She stepped past Diana into the foyer, her home smelling foreign, like lemon polish and stage furniture. Not a single trace of her was visible. No photos of her and Ethan laughing. No postcard from their honeymoon. It was as if someone had come through and erased her existence inch by inch. "Did you take down her pictures?" she whispered. Diana folded the umbrella she never even used. "You should start packing what's yours. The sooner we make this clean, the better." Clean. Like Lily was a stain to scrub away. She moved through the living room on autopilot, heart battering her ribs. The couch where she and Ethan once fell asleep watching movies was dressed with cushions she didn't choose. The walls looked naked, fresh paint covering where picture frames used to hang. Diana's voice followed her like a shadow. "You'll land on your feet. Women always do." Lily paused at the staircase, rainwater dripping off her coat onto hardwood. One sharp thought struck through the fog. Ethan wasn't coming home. He wasn't fighting for her. And somewhere deep inside her chest, something small yet fierce flickered awake. Not anger yet, but the first hint of spark. A door slammed upstairs, someone moving. Not Ethan. Diana had brought help to pack Lily's life away. At that moment, if you had been standing there, watching the pieces fall the way she did, what would you have said? Would you have walked away? Stayed silent? Stepped in? Be honest and leave your thought in the comments below. And if silence is easier, hit like to show compassion still counts. Lily inhaled sharply and marched upstairs, refusing to let anyone else decide which fragments of her life she kept. Room by room, her hands shook as she gathered clothes, books, a framed copy of her wedding vows she couldn't yet bear to read. Each item weighed more than it should. Some grief, some shame, some memory refusing to let go. But under every breath of loss, that flicker kept growing. She didn't know where it would take her. She didn't know it would change everything. She only knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end. Not yet. The cardboard box in Lily's hand sagged as she lowered it onto the bed, the flaps bending under the weight of things she once thought would last forever. Her wedding dress lay folded inside, not carefully, not reverently, but rushed like something that needed to disappear before it asked questions no one wanted to answer. The bedroom looked wrong. Too empty. Too neat. The faint indentation on Ethan's side of the mattress was already gone, smoothed away like he'd never slept there, like she'd imagined the years of whispered conversations in the dark. The silence pressed against her ears until it hurt. Downstairs, Diana's voice floated upward, sharp, efficient, directing the movers as if orchestrating a corporate merger instead of dismantling a marriage. Careful with that frame. Yes, that one stays. Lily closed her eyes. A memory slipped in without permission. 5 years earlier, she'd stood in this same room, sunlight spilling across the floor, laughing as Ethan struggled to carry her over the threshold. Diana had watched from the doorway that day too, smiling, clapping, saying all the right things. Lily remembered thinking she was lucky. A husband she adored. A mother-in-law who seemed supportive. That illusion had cracked slowly. It started with comments disguised as concern. Are you sure that's how Ethan likes his shirts folded? Have you thought about a better career path? Stability matters in this family. You're sweet, Lily, just a little soft. Soft. As if kindness were a flaw. Lily slid down onto the edge of the bed, clutching a sweater Ethan used to steal from her on cold nights. Her chest tightened. She hadn't been perfect, but she had tried. Tried to belong. Tried to earn approval that was never really on offer. The door creaked open. Diana stood there, arms crossed, eyes scanning the room like an inspector. You're taking too long, she said. The movers are on the clock. Lily didn't look up. This is my home. Diana exhaled through her nose. It was. Now it's better suited for a fresh start. For Ethan, Lily murmured. Yes, Diana said without hesitation. For Ethan. That was the moment the last thread snapped. Lily stood, meeting her mother-in-law's gaze. For the first time, she saw it clearly. Not concern, not disappointment, but control. Diana had never wanted a daughter-in-law. She wanted obedience. Silence. Someone who wouldn't challenge the shape of the world she'd built around her son. You planned this, Lily said quietly. Diana's eyes hardened. I protected my family. Lily let out a breath that felt like surrender, but wasn't. So did I. She lifted the box and brushed past her, shoulder grazing shoulder. Diana stiffened, offended not by the contact, but by the refusal. Lily carried the box downstairs, every step echoing with something close to resolve. Outside, the rain had slowed to a mist. The movers avoided her eyes as she loaded her car. When the trunk finally closed, the sound echoed like a door slamming shut on one life and opening another she couldn't yet see. She drove without direction at first, city lights smearing across wet pavement. Her phone buzzed once. Then again, Ethan's name flashed on the screen. She didn't answer. Instead, she pulled over near a small park, headlights cutting across empty swings, swaying in the breeze. Her hands trembled as she finally checked the voicemail. Lily, Ethan's voice said, thin and strained. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. Mom thought it would be easier. We'll talk soon. I just need time. Time. The word felt like a theft. She deleted the message and rested her forehead against the steering wheel. For a few seconds, she let herself break. Silent sobs shaking her shoulders, tears soaking into fabric. No audience. No judgment. Just grief, raw and honest. Then her phone buzzed again. This time, a different name. Grace Miller, her former professor. The woman who once told her, "You don't shrink to fit rooms, Lily. You build bigger ones." Lily hesitated before answering. "Grace." "I heard," Grace said gently. "Ethan called the department asking if I knew where you were." Of course he had. He always went to someone else when things got hard. "I'm fine," Lily lied. Grace paused. "You don't sound fine. Where are you?" Minutes later, Lily sat in Grace's warm kitchen, hands wrapped around a mug of tea that smelled like chamomile and safety. The walls were cluttered with books and photographs, real life, unapologetically messy. Grace listened without interrupting as Lily spoke, words spilling out like water released from a dam. When Lily finally stopped, her throat burned, her eyes swollen. Grace reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You were brave longer than you should have had to be. Have you ever had someone help you when no one else would? If yes, right? Yes, and tell me their name." Sometimes gratitude deserves to be spoken out loud. Maybe it travels farther than we expect. Lily stayed on Grace's couch that night, staring at the ceiling fan as it turned slowly, rhythmically, steady in a world that had suddenly become anything but. For the first time since the envelope, she slept. Morning came softly. Sunlight filtered through curtains, painting the room gold. Lily woke with a strange feeling. Not peace, not yet, but clarity. She couldn't control what Diana had done. She couldn't force Ethan to fight for her. But she could choose what happened next. Grace knocked lightly and handed her a phone. "Someone left you this." A message blinked on the screen from a law office. Lily's pulse quickened as she read the subject line. Regarding asset disclosure and marital records. Her breath caught. Something was unfolding. Something Diana hadn't planned for. And as Lily sat there, sunlight warming her skin, that quiet spark inside her chest grew brighter, steady, intentional. She didn't know it yet, but the papers meant to erase her. Were about to expose everything. She looked up at Grace, voice barely above a whisper. What if this isn't just an ending? Grace didn't answer Lily right away. She just watched her with that calm, unreadable expression, the kind earned only by people who had lived long enough to see endings disguise themselves as beginnings. Then she smiled, slow and certain. "Most endings are just doors," Grace said. "You don't recognize them until you've walked through." The law office email sat between them like a loaded question. Lily read it again, slower this time. It wasn't just about paperwork. It was a request, formal, precise, asking for clarification on assets, timelines, and signatures that didn't quite align. Ethan never cared about details, Lily said quietly. He left everything to his mother. Grace nodded. And that's exactly why details matter now. Later that afternoon, Lily sat across from Mark Reynolds, a lawyer with tired eyes and a voice that didn't waste words. His office smelled faintly of coffee and old books. As Lily explained, Diana's control, the rushed divorce papers, Ethan's absence. Mark listened, pen still, gaze sharp. When she finished, he leaned back. Your mother-in-law filed fast. Too fast. There are discrepancies here. Joint investments moved without consent, signatures that raise questions. Lily's stomach tightened. What does that mean? It means, Mark said carefully, this divorce isn't as clean as she thinks. A strange feeling crept in. Not joy, not revenge. Validation. The quiet relief of being told she wasn't crazy, that the unease she'd lived with had a shape and a name. That night, Lily walked alone through the city. The rain had washed the streets clean, leaving everything sharp and reflective. She passed a cafe where couples laughed behind fogged windows, a bus stop where a mother tugged her child's coat tighter. Life was still happening, unapologetic, indifferent. For the first time, she didn't feel like an outsider watching through glass. She felt like someone standing at the edge of something unfinished. Days passed. Lily stayed with Grace, sending emails, signing forms, answering questions she never thought she'd need to answer. Ethan didn't call again. Diana sent one message, cold, legal, dismissive. Do not complicate this. Lily deleted it without replying. One afternoon, Grace invited her to walk with her through the community center where she volunteered. The building buzzed with low voices and movement. Kids doing homework, seniors playing cards, a woman crying softly in the corner while another held her hand. Lily paused, watching. "Why bring me here?" she asked. Grace glanced at her. "Because when the world tries to reduce you to paperwork, it helps to remember who you are outside of it." A young girl ran past them, nearly colliding with Lily. "Sorry," she laughed before disappearing down the hall. Something loosened in Lily's chest. She spent the afternoon helping, pouring coffee, organizing donated clothes, listening. No one asked about her past. No one cared who she used to be married to. They only saw who she was right now. Someone present, someone kind. "Now it's your turn." Pause for a second. What's one small good thing you've done recently? Even if no one noticed, share it below. Your story might remind someone scrolling tonight that goodness still exists. That evening, Lily returned to Grace's house exhausted but lighter. As she kicked off her shoes, her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Lily." Ethan's voice said, strained and unfamiliar. "We need to talk." She closed her eyes. "About what?" There was a pause. "Mom's furious. She says you're pushing back." "I'm asking questions," Lily replied. "There's a difference. She's saying you're trying to hurt us." Lily laughed softly, not with humor, but disbelief. "Ethan, I didn't file those papers. I didn't deliver them in the rain. I didn't erase someone from their own home." Silence. Finally, he said, "I didn't know." "That's the problem," Lily said gently. "You never wanted to know." The line went dead. A week later, the truth surfaced piece by piece. Accounts moved before the filing date. Property listed as separate that wasn't. Diana's meticulous control had left fingerprints everywhere. And once exposed, it couldn't be hidden again. Mark called with the update. She overplayed her hand. Lily sat on the edge of the couch, phone pressed to her ear, heart pounding. "What happens now?" "Now," he said, "she answers for it." When the official notice arrived, Lily didn't feel triumph. She felt something quieter. Final. The kind of calm that comes after a storm has already passed and taken what it needed. Diana called that night. Lily let it ring. Outside, the city hummed. Somewhere, people were still loving, still failing, still trying again. Lily stood by the window, arms wrapped around herself, not in defense, but grounding. She thought of the girl who once believed love meant enduring silence. She thought of the woman she was becoming, someone who no longer disappeared to keep peace. And as the lights flickered on across the skyline, Lily realized something else. The papers meant to end her life had only revealed who truly controlled it. She turned away from the window, heart steady, ready for what came next. Just as the phone buzzed again, this time with news that would change everything. The phone vibrated again, but this time Lily didn't let it ring. She answered before fear could decide for her. "Ms. Carter," Mark's voice said, lower than usual, edged with something unreadable. "I wanted you to hear this from me, not through formal notice." Lily leaned against the counter, the cool surface grounding her. "Just tell me." "There's an investigation opening," he said. "Not just civil. Financial misconduct. Your mother-in-law transferred funds tied to a trust Ethan didn't even know existed. Your name is on part of it, because she used your marriage to move things quietly." Lily's breath caught. "So all this time, she used you as cover," Mark finished gently. "Without your consent." The room felt suddenly too small. Lily slid down into a chair, fingers curling around the edge as if it might drift away. Images flashed through her mind. Diana insisting on handling paperwork, brushing off questions, saying, "Trust me, dear." Trust. That word landed now like broken glass. Grace appeared in the doorway, reading Lily's face before a word was spoken. She crossed the room and knelt beside her, resting a steady hand on Lily's knee. When the call ended, Lily stared at nothing. "She didn't just want me gone," she whispered. "She needed me invisible." Grace nodded. "And now she isn't in control of that anymore." The next few days moved fast, like a current Lily couldn't step out of even if she wanted to. Emails, statements, dates she had to confirm. Questions that circled back to moments she'd brushed off because love told her not to dig too deep. Ethan showed up unannounced on the third night. Grace answered the door, blocking the entry with her body. "She didn't invite you." "I just want to talk," Ethan said, eyes hollow, hands shoved into his coat pockets. "Please." Lily heard his voice from the living room. For a moment, she didn't move. Then she stood, slowly, deliberately, and walked forward. They faced each other with a few feet of space that felt wider than an ocean. "I didn't know," Ethan said again, like the words might finally fix something if he repeated them enough. "Mom handled everything. I thought." "You thought it was easier not to ask," Lily said calmly. No anger, just truth. "You always did." His shoulders sagged. "She said you were trying to take things from us." Lily tilted her head. "From you? Or from her?" Ethan flinched. "I loved you," Lily continued, voice steady but soft. "But I needed a partner. Not someone who let another person decide my worth." Silence filled the room, thick and final. "I'm not fighting you," she said at last. "I'm just done disappearing." Ethan swallowed, nodded once, and left without another word. The door clicked shut behind him, not slammed, not dramatic, just closed. That night, Lily dreamed of standing in a house with no walls. The sky stretched endlessly above her, terrifying and free. The investigation made things public. Not loudly, no headlines, but enough. Whispers traveled through social circles Diana once ruled with precision. Invitations stopped coming. Phone calls went unanswered. Lily didn't watch it happen. She didn't need to. Instead, she focused on rebuilding the pieces Diana never bothered to notice. She volunteered more at the community center. Started teaching evening writing classes, something she'd put off for years because it wasn't practical enough. The first night, only 4 people showed up. By the third week, the room was full. Stories spilled out. Loss, hope, mistakes, quiet victories. Lily listened, guided, encouraged. Each voice felt like a small echo of her own survival. One afternoon, while packing up papers, a woman lingered behind. "Thank you," she said. "I almost didn't come. I'm going through a divorce too." Lily smiled gently. "I know how heavy that feels." The woman hesitated. "How do you stand it?" "The anger." Lily thought for a moment. "I don't carry what isn't mine anymore." When the official findings were finalized, Mark called again. Diana had agreed to settle, quietly. No courtroom, no spectacle, just accountability wrapped in paperwork. "Is that what you want?" he asked. "To be done." Lily looked around Grace's living room. Sunlight on bookshelves, a plant she'd started watering herself, notes from her students scattered across the table. "Yes," she said, "I want peace." That evening, she sat alone on the porch, watching dusk fold into night. She didn't feel victorious. She felt whole, scarred but intact. If that realization hit you the way it hit her, leave a red heart. Some moments don't need words. They just need to be felt. Lily rested her head back against the chair, eyes closing as the air cooled around her. For the first time since the envelope, her chest didn't feel tight. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. But she knew this. She was no longer living on permission. And somewhere in the quiet distance, consequences were still unfolding. Even as Lily stepped forward, unaware of the final test still waiting ahead. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, slipped through the mail slot with a dull thud that echoed louder than it should have. Lily stood frozen in the kitchen, coffee growing cold in her hands as she stared at the envelope on the floor. She already knew who it was from. The handwriting was unmistakable, sharp, precise, each letter standing at attention like it had something to prove. Diana Grant. Lily didn't pick it up right away. She opened the window instead, letting in crisp air and the distant sound of traffic beginning its daily rhythm. She reminded herself that she was safe, that nothing inside that envelope could take from her what she had already reclaimed. Then she bent down and lifted it. Inside was a single page. No legal language. No threats. Just words. "Lily, I never intended for things to go this far. Everything I did was for my family. I see now that mistakes were made. I hope one day you'll understand that my actions came from love, even if it didn't feel that way to you. Lily let out a slow breath. Love. The words sat heavy, complicated. She thought of Diana's eyes the night of the storm, cold, controlled. Thought of years of quiet erasure, disguised as guidance. Of the way power had been mistaken for protection. Grace found her an hour later, letter folded neatly on the table. You don't have to respond, Grace said gently. I know, Lily replied, but I keep wondering if I should. They sat in silence, sunlight stretching across the floor between them. Forgiveness hovered at the edge of Lily's thoughts, not as a gift to Diana, but as a question to herself. Was forgiving the same as forgetting? As excusing? Or was it simply laying down a burden she was tired of carrying? That afternoon, Lily went for a long walk. The city felt different now, less hostile, more open. She passed familiar streets she'd once hurried through, eyes down, afraid of taking up space. Today, she walked slower. At a crosswalk, an elderly man struggled with his bags. Lily stepped forward without thinking, helping him carry them to the corner. He smiled, thanked her twice. Something warm settled in her chest. That night, alone in her room, Lily opened her laptop and began to write. Not a reply. At least not yet. Just words. Her words. She wrote about love that controls versus love that frees. About silence mistaken for peace. About how harm doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers and calls it self-care. When she finished, she felt lighter. Ethan emailed 2 days later. Short. Careful. I'm starting therapy. I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to know I see things differently now. Lily read it once. Then again. She believed him. And somehow, that didn't hurt. Grace watched her from the doorway as Lily closed the laptop. You're at a crossroads, she said softly. Not with them. With yourself. Lily nodded. She felt it too. The quiet tension between holding on and letting go. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would cut too deeply. There's no right answer. Only the truth you're brave enough to face. The following week, Lily received confirmation that the divorce was finalized. Clean. Fair. Final. She didn't cry. Instead, she went to her evening class and listened as one of her students read aloud a piece about starting over at 43. The room applauded. Someone laughed through tears. Lily realized then that forgiveness wasn't a single moment. It was a process. Some days it felt possible. Other days it didn't. And that was okay. She wrote Diana a short reply. Not absolution. Not blame. I'm choosing to move forward without carrying anger. That doesn't mean what happened didn't matter. It means I'm done letting it define me. She mailed it the next morning. Weeks passed. Lily's life filled with small, meaningful routines. Teaching, volunteering, quiet dinners with Grace, walks where she noticed the sky again. The ache hadn't vanished, but it no longer ruled her. One evening, as she locked up the classroom, she felt it. That sense of calm before something shifts. Not dread, anticipation. She paused, hand on the door, breathing in the stillness. Some chapters closed loudly. Others closed with a whisper. And just as Lily stepped into the night, unaware of the final turn still ahead, her phone buzzed with a message that would test everything she believed she'd already healed. The message came through just after midnight, lighting up Lily's phone in the dark like a quiet challenge. Diana is in the hospital. She's asking for you. Lily sat up slowly, the room still wrapped in sleep. For a long moment, she didn't move. The words didn't hit like a shock. They settled instead. Heavy, complicated, unresolved. Grace stirred on the couch in the next room when Lily patted out, phone still in hand. One look at Lily's face, and she was fully awake. You don't have to go, Grace said immediately. Not if it costs you peace. I know, Lily replied. And she meant it. That knowledge alone was something she'd earned the hard way. She dressed quietly and drove through streets nearly empty. Traffic lights blinking yellow like they didn't expect anyone to be awake at this hour. The hospital rose ahead, white and unforgiving, windows glowing with other people's emergencies. Inside, the air smelled like antiseptic and tired hope. Lily gave her name at the desk and followed a nurse down a long corridor, each step echoing with memories she hadn't invited but hadn't outrun either. Diana looked smaller in the hospital bed. Not weak exactly, but stripped of armor. Tubes ran from her arm, monitors humming softly. When she saw Lily, her eyes filled instantly. "You came," Diana whispered. Lily stood at the foot of the bed, hands folded, posture calm. "I wasn't sure I would." Diana nodded, as if she deserved that uncertainty. "I didn't expect forgiveness," she said hoarsely. "I just didn't want to be alone." For the first time, Lily saw her not as an adversary, not even as a villain, but as a woman whose fear had dressed itself up as control. It didn't excuse anything, but explained enough. They sat in silence for a while. No accusations. No apologies large enough to erase the past. Just two people breathing the same air. "I was wrong," Diana said finally. The words trembled, fragile. "I thought protecting meant deciding. I didn't see how much I was taking." Lily felt something loosen, not dramatically, not all at once. "Just enough. I won't pretend it didn't hurt," Lily said gently. "But I won't carry it anymore either." Diana closed her eyes, a tear slipping free. "That's more kindness than I deserve." Lily didn't argue. When she left the hospital, dawn was beginning to creep into the sky, pale and tentative. She sat in her car for a long time, watching the light grow. She didn't feel heroic. She felt human. And somehow, that felt better. Over the next weeks, life didn't explode into miracles. It softened. Lily's class grew again. Someone brought cookies. Someone else brought courage they didn't know they had until they spoke it out loud. Grace laughed more. Ethan kept his distance, respectfully, sending one final message that simply said, "Thank you for teaching me something I didn't know how to learn." Lily didn't reply. She didn't need to. One evening, after class, Lily walked home under a sky streaked pink and gold. She felt a strange, quiet certainty settle over her. Not that everything would be easy, but that she could handle whatever came. If you believe love still wins, quietly, imperfectly, but truly, comment amen. Let's leave a little hope here. Someone scrolling tonight might need to see it. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and paused. The apartment felt warm. Lived in. Hers. A plant sat by the window, leaves reaching toward fading light. Papers from her students lay on the table, messy and alive. Lily smiled. She had survived the ending. She had chosen herself in the aftermath. And now, without fanfare, without permission, she was living the beginning. Her phone buzzed once more on the table. Lily glanced at it, curious but unafraid, sensing that whatever it held wasn't a threat. The invitation wasn't fancy. No dramatic subject line. Just a short message from a director of the community center. "We're opening a new program. Adult literacy and storytelling. Grace suggested you. Would you consider leading it?" Lily sat at the table, phone resting in her palm, heart beating a little faster. Not from fear, but recognition. This wasn't a rescue. This wasn't someone stepping in to save her. This was a door opening because she had already walked far enough to reach it. She said yes. The weeks that followed unfolded gently, like pages turning without resistance. The new program met twice a week in a sunlit room that smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. People came carrying stories they'd never said out loud. Immigrants practicing new words, retirees reclaiming old dreams, women who'd been quiet for decades finally testing their voices. Lily didn't stand at the front like an authority. She sat among them. She listened more than she spoke. One evening, a man in his 50s cleared his throat before reading. His hand shook. Halfway through, his voice cracked, and he stopped. "I've never told anyone this," he said, embarrassed. "Not even my kids." Lily met his eyes. "You don't owe us perfection," she said softly. "Just honesty." He continued. When he finished, the room was silent. Not empty, but full. Walking home that night, Lily realized something simple and enormous. Her pain had not disappeared, but had been transformed. Diana was discharged from the hospital a month later. She didn't call. She sent a short note instead. No explanations, no expectations. Lily placed it in a drawer and closed it gently, like setting down something fragile without needing to examine it further. Grace watched Lily from across the kitchen one morning as Lily prepped lesson notes. "You know," she said, Some people think revenge is loud. Lily smiled faintly. I used to, and now. Now I think it looks like living well, Lily replied. Quietly. Honestly. On the anniversary of the night, it all began. The rain, the envelope, the ending. Lily drove past her old house without stopping. The porch light was on. Someone else lived there now. Someone else's beginning. She didn't feel bitterness. She felt distance. Later that evening, Lily stood in front of her class and shared something she hadn't planned to. I used to believe strength meant staying, she said. Enduring. Being agreeable enough not to be left. The room was still. I was wrong, she continued. Sometimes strength is leaving. Sometimes it's speaking. And sometimes it's just not becoming cruel after you've been hurt. She paused, breath steady. That's the hardest kind. After class, a young woman approached her, eyes shining. I think, she said quietly, this is the first time I've seen what survival can look like without bitterness. Lily felt her throat tighten. It takes time, she replied, and patience with yourself. That night, alone in her apartment, Lily lit a single candle and sat by the window. The city stretched before her, alive, imperfect, still trying. She thought of the girl she used to be, the woman she was becoming. No thunder, no applause, just peace. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried this pain and still chose kindness. One click can be your way of saying, I felt you. The candle flickered. Lily exhaled, slow and full. She hadn't won a battle. She hadn't destroyed anyone. She had done something far rarer. She had walked through loss and come out human. The candle burned low, its flame shrinking into a quiet glow before surrendering to a thin curl of smoke. Lily watched it fade, not with sadness, but with recognition. Some things were meant to end softly, without noise, without witnesses, so that something steadier could take their place. Morning arrived with pale sunlight and the hum of the city waking up. Lily brewed coffee, opened the window, and let fresh air move through her apartment. The space felt lived in now. Not staged, not borrowed. Hers. She dressed without rushing. There was no one to impress, no role to perform. At the community center, the final session of the program gathered more people than ever before. Chairs scraped gently against the floor as everyone settled in. Some faces were nervous, some hopeful, some both. Lily stood, holding a single sheet of paper. Today, she said, isn't about writing something perfect. It's about writing something true, even if it's unfinished. She watched them bend over notebooks, pens moving slowly at first, then faster, freer. Words filling spaces that had been quiet for too long. When it was time to share, Lily listened. Stories of regret softened by time. Of forgiveness not yet reached. Of courage still trembling but present. She didn't correct grammar. She didn't rush silences. She honored them. Afterward, as people hugged and promised to keep writing, Grace appeared in the doorway, eyes shining with that familiar pride. You built something real, she said. Lily shook her head gently. They did. I just stayed. That afternoon, Lily took a long walk alone. She crossed streets she once avoided, past mirrors of shop windows, and didn't look away. Her reflection met her steadily now. She stopped at a small park and sat on a bench beneath a tree just beginning to bloom. Petals drifted down, landing briefly on her coat before the breeze carried them on. She thought of Diana, not with anger, not with triumph, but with a kind of distant compassion. Some people never learn another way. Some do, but late. Either way, Lily no longer lived inside that lesson. She thought of Ethan, of love that wasn't evil, just too weak to stand when it mattered. She hoped he learned. She hoped he didn't repeat the same silence with someone else. But most of all, she thought of herself, the woman who once begged to be chosen, the woman who mistook endurance for devotion, the woman who learned slowly, painfully, that staying kind does not mean staying small. As evening fell, Lily returned home and opened her laptop. She didn't write about loss this time. She wrote about mornings, about teaching, about how healing wasn't a straight line, but a widening circle, each turn bringing more space to breathe. When she finished, she didn't reread it. She closed the screen and smiled. Some stories aren't meant to be revised. They're meant to be lived forward. Lily turned off the lights and stood for a moment in the dark, listening to the steady rhythm of her own breath. No fear crept in. No old voice questioned her worth. Just quiet. And in that quiet was the lesson she would carry. Not loudly, not proudly, but faithfully. That revenge doesn't always roar. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes it looks like choosing yourself without needing anyone else to lose. Lily lay down, the city murmuring outside her window, and let sleep come easily. The past no longer waited for her. The future didn't demand anything. She had arrived, not at perfection, but at home.